Well, as always, we appreciate your company right here on K24 this morning. Welcome to our social hour. My name is Shiko Kaitani. Remember, we are going to be looking out for you on our social media platforms. You can catch us as at K24 TV. And our WhatsApp number, pretty active. Start talking to us as we begin our conversation. Now, today on the show, we are going to continue focusing on education. And as children continue to adjust to their learning environment, the talk about the discrimination on teenage mothers and pregnant girls has surfaced. And so some reports indicate that many schools prefer to expel pregnant girls who are seen to be a bad influence on other girls in school, others going as far as ignoring a direct return to school policy that allows girls to continue with their formal education. And so this morning, we discussed the impact of discrimination in schools on these, or this rather what you would call a vulnerable group, and perhaps seek solutions on a more inclusive learning environment. I want to welcome Catherine Carrera. She's back again on the show. She's a teen mentor and a motivational speaker. Madam Carrera, asante sana for being with us.
Thank you very much, Shiko, for hosting me again.
All right. And face up, we haven't seen a very long time, Angela Sikanda. She is from the Center for Rights, Education and Awareness, but you can call them Crew Kenya. Welcome to the show again.
Thank you, Shiko, for having us.
Yes, we had such a blast last time you were here, but today we've got quite the discussion to tackle. And of course, as we begin, we do want to put the question of the day for you on your screen. And there you go. We ask, what major challenges do you think pregnant teens or young moms face in their learning environment? What challenges do you think that they are going to be facing if they've not already started school or are already experiencing, yet again, at K24 TV? So, Catherine, as we start the conversation, let's just understand the scope of things by just getting a feel of where that the teenage pregnancy crisis rather is as we speak.
Very many girls, Shiko, are pregnant.
Yeah.
But I'll always say that the girls do not make themselves pregnant. There's a boy. So even as we focus on telling the girl how to go forward, we must also talk to the boy. Because the boy is also hurting. And the scars that we don't see take longer to heal. However, for the girl, bears more weight because the pregnancy is on her. But the best thing that everyone should hear this morning is that every teenager that is pregnant is a reflection of poverty levels in Kenya.
Really?
And when we disobey what we are seeing now and we assume it, we are going to become worse. Because every teenager that is pregnant today, if we don't take care of them, in the next 2 years, they'll have a second baby. So we must all wake up and see that this poverty level must be reduced. And the one way to reduce poverty level is sending the girls back to school. And it's unfortunate that the girls are always victimized. And this is blaming the victim. As I said, the girls have been made pregnant by the men. Let me just try and talk to the men. And I want us to understand the man as a male. And I want to group the man in 3 stages. Number 1, by birth, he becomes a male. He grows to become a man. By choice, he becomes a gentleman. And that is why we are failing. We are not having enough gentlemen because the gentlemen will not have sex with another age. These children in school are other age. They are minors. The people that have made them pregnant are the criminals.
Okay.
Yes.
So now, just by looking at the statistics that were even coming out in the newspaper, thousands of names that are out there. Did it look like it was magnified, or do you think it? Because some people would say the crisis is not as we think, as bad as it should be.
It is not magnified. We are in a crisis.
We're in a crisis.
Because one thing, nobody wants to talk about sex. We all want to assume that sex is a taboo. Unfortunately, our children are thinking that sex is one of the play games they have. And when they came home for Corona, they got something I call bold. And when your human mind, when it is idle, it knows how to look for trouble.
It's the devil's workshop.
Because you people in the media, you have taught us that romance is the thing to watch. When these children sit and they watch people kissing, the next thing they want to do is practice, and they have enough time. And now we are hearing it and we are seeing it as pregnancy. But now what we must need to do is arrest this issue by 2 things. Calling everybody to go out and speak and tell the teenagers, yes, sex is there, but sex is not food. Nobody will ever die for not having sex.
Okay.
And then we tell them there's a time for everything.
Okay.
And they must go on with the education.
All right. Well, Angela, you can already see we've started on a high note.
Yeah, true.
All right. So for you, and of course with the kind of work that you do, it's also important to understand the fears that these pregnant teenagers would have, or these young mothers do have, that make them, hardly enthusiastic about going back to school.
True.
Yeah. Talk to us about some of those fears.
Well, pregnancy is what it is. It's a biological function, and with it comes changes. And these teenage mothers are trying to grapple the changes, their body changes, which
Right.
are the normal biological stage of life that they are in. But beyond that, they also have the hormonal changes that are brought about by pregnancy. Understanding what is happening to them is a challenge that they have to grapple with.
Yeah.
And often within the school setting, there is not enough time to be able to explain all these changes. Now, all the things they are learning in theory are reality to their life.
Yeah.
Managing that is very difficult. And if there's no support structure, both at home and within the school setting, it's very challenging. The body is growing, you have this tummy that is now growing.
Yeah.
The other children are asking, and they're curious to know what's happening to you.
Yeah.
How do they respond? They can't just go openly and say, oh, I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
Because as far as the return to school policy fight, what most schools will do is tell them, do not say it. Okay, so they are not supposed to say, one, that they're pregnant.
Yeah.
Nobody is explaining to them how to manage the emotions that come with it. You'll find that sometimes, depending on how it is, sometimes they may have complications.
Yeah.
They have to often leave school, for example, to attend their clinic days. They have to be able to prepare, meaning they need to be able to know how to take care of this child before
Yeah.
they come in. Taking care also of themselves, noting any difficulties that they may have, so that when they go to hospital, they can be attended to.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't have a support structure, or the school system is such that it doesn't allow for them to be able to be comfortable,
Yeah.
then it becomes uncomfortable. The many hours they have to spend in school, and they're wondering, I'm feeling tired.
Right.
How does the school setting allow me to do that? They want to put their legs up because they're feeling that the pressure is high.
Right.
There's no school providing
just
that
not
support.
conducive.
So the child will
Yeah.
decide, you know what, I'd rather stay at home than be in school, and
Yeah.
I'm feeling very unwell.
Right.
Let me be at home. But the school needs to be able to acknowledge, should that be the scenario, then they're able to accept this child after they are done with delivery,
Yeah.
and the child is stable enough for somebody else to be able to support with care, and the child can come back to school, because it doesn't take away from their age that they are children, and they're yet to understand what has transpired.
Yeah, they have
so it's
their life
important
ahead
they
of
get
them.
back into
Yeah.
that learning, but at the same time support them to understand what is going on.
Okay.
There's also the issue of people are curious.
Yeah.
Who's the father to this child? Because, like she said, children don't form themselves. There's a man involved. Who's this man? What is their responsibility? Because you also have to take into account that there's now another human being they have to worry about.
Absolutely.
Their care and their protection. And that this girl has to be at the fore of this process, because it's not the responsibility of the mother. It still remains you as a parent to be responsible to that child. So balancing that,
Yeah.
you have homework, you have tuition, you have exams. Balancing all that is a challenge. So
It
you
can be
need
too
to,
much,
It can
yeah.
be too much and overwhelming. So you find there's a lot of stress that they were going to
Okay.
be able to, demonstrate in school.
Absolutely.
It could be in outbursts. It could be in how they carry out simple tasks. They could refuse even exercises within the school setting, for example, like
Yeah.
going out for games. Or if you give them a lot of homework, they'll tell you no, because at some point I need to go feed.
Right.
There's milk, for example, which may be a problem depending on the age of the child. They need to go and express this milk. If they don't have the support structure to enable them to do that,
Yeah.
how do they manage? If other kids come and tell you, oh, you've soiled your shirt.
Yeah.
Is that milk? And they're curious, how does it taste? And all kinds, because they're children, they're curious from another level, and from a level of innocence.
Wow, I
and
can
those
imagine.
those questions are very uncomfortable for these children.
Okay.
And often, they're not even considered children. In fact, most people now start referring to them as women.
Wow.
Mama
Oh,
Nani,
Mama
Mama Nani.
Nani.
You even
And-
stop having a name.
and you
so
know-
that is a challenge that these girls have to deal with at
Okay.
that stage.
And I like that you brought up the whole Mama Nani issue, because it ties into what I'm about to share. There's a very interesting read that I came across from the Interpress service, and they had interviewed a young mother known as Metito, obviously not her real name, who wanted to say, and listen to this, let me quote her. My classmates in my former school would laugh at me when they realized I was pregnant, Metito said. They even drew cartoons to illustrate my condition on the blackboard just to ridicule me. It was really stressful. And when my mother insisted that I go back to school after taking care of my son for 2 years, I cried. By then, I had given up on my dreams of becoming a lawyer one day. We perhaps, Catherine, do not realize what the shaming and the teasing and the bullying does to a young mother. Let's talk about the psychological impact, by the way, of them carrying this toto for 9 months and then having to go back and deal with the society.
One thing that we need to understand is a child with a child is no longer a normal teenager. They require all the support that we can give them and no condemnation.
Yeah.
And then also remember that they have a path of success ahead of them. So we must be able to support them knowing they are very fragile and remembering these are victims. They have been taken advantage of.
Yeah.
So, and as she has said, yes, they may be out of school so they can nurse the child. But remember, Shiko, the longer you stay out of school, the harder it is for you to go back. What we need to do is have talks like now what you're bringing in here, where we can go and tell them it is normal. Though you're not feeling normal, can we move at your pace? Can the teachers and the social workers in the villages move at the pace of this girl? Because they have a dream. And again, time is moving. Time is not waiting for them. And unfortunately, some of these girls have been molested. They have been failed by their own father, by their own brother. So they have bitterness. And unfortunately, in Kenya, counseling has not gone to that level. We need to reach them, empathize with them, and help work with them. And it's good that now we have centers where children are able to go in school with their babies and they have a nursing care for the children. What we need all to realize is that when we rule ourselves as the seniors, ourselves as parents, and even our leaders there. Because Shiko, leading sin is leaders' sin. If our leaders out there are under the influence of what I want to call this morning, PMS, power, money, and sex. And this is what is hitting our girls in the slums. I'm sure you saw it yesterday in the newspaper, where our girls are under the same influence of PMS, but now poverty, money, and sex. So the sooner we help them, the better. Because these girls, again, we can rest in the comfort of there are so many girls that are pregnant. That way, even this individual doesn't look it as myself. They must also be able to swallow the painful pills of stigma, but realize what I have always said, Shiko, they have an appointment with their destiny. And just because they have gone down now doesn't mean they will stay down. They must dust themselves and rise again. And remember, they are the victim.
Wow, appointment with their destiny. And that really is the only way to encourage them, to be honest, and just telling them that there's a future ahead. But we talked about something very interesting, you know, prior to this conversation, Angela, about some of the recommendations that parents have been given, which is transfer the child altogether to, you know, make the transition a little bit easier. But in your opinion and from your expertise with even all these young mothers, is it even wise to uproot them from, you know, what they know as their normal?
Two things about that. Usually the idea is that if you go to a new environment, then you're introducing yourself to your peers or your classmates. So whatever information you omit then doesn't follow, the stigma won't follow you as much as it would when you go back to a familiar school where they know you, they know your history, and so it's very easy for other children to bully you, call you names, and make all kinds of fun around who you are. But if you go to a new school, you're really introducing yourself to this community, you're introducing yourself to your classmates. It's easier to interact with and make friends afresh as children, and therefore you have a time to heal, focus, and then you focus on your education much easier. The challenge then is whether where the parents are, they're in a space where they're able to do that. How many schools do we have nearest to you where you can be able to do that? Because often it may require a relocation of the entire family. Other times it's because of the media and how they portray the girls, where their faces are out in public spaces and the family can move forward even. So that, such that their family is forced to move to a new location so that they're in a space where people are not judging them, the stigma comes down, the discrimination is less, and can be able to maneuver so that the people who know that, for example, this girl is a parent may be only, the head teacher, and maybe or the class teacher only, and the rest of the people are not privy to that detail.
Right.
So the idea of moving them to the different schools usually is informed by that, and also capacity of the parents. But that said and done, there's also the support structure is what is necessary. Some schools don't have good psychosocial support, where you find the guardians and counselor teacher plays a dual role. They're your teacher and they're your counselor.
Yeah.
In counseling setting, you talk of very private and intimate information you share.
Yeah.
So when this person is also coming to judge you on your performance, you're left to wonder, are you judging based on what I have done,
right,
or is it based on the other information you have about this individual? So you find the girls shy away from sharing with the guidance and counseling teachers. But if we had professional services in the schools, it's easier for the girls to open up. It's easier for the school to also have these talks openly and talk to the other girls to know how do they handle their colleagues who may be mothers, and it's easier and accepted.
Okay.
But that said and done, that conversation needs to be moderated. Because again, you don't want their children, so they are learning. And so they're interested to know, how does it feel to be a mother? And depending on the information you share, it may interest some to want to experience and say, I want to be a mother like that one.
Oh, wow.
Because I noticed that her face is bubbly, her hips are more defined. And they start imagining there are some goodies. Like she says, yes, sex is something that sells, unfortunately, in our communities. Right. Not just in Kenya, but across the board. So when they see that, this one's suddenly starting to have these features and they're interested, they want to experiment, we know that, yes, as much as we say it is the man and they're older most of the time, we've also seen the girls experimenting with each other.
Right.
So people have questioned whether it is time we look at the issue of having separate schools for girls and boys versus mixed. But research shows us that it doesn't really make a difference.
It doesn't.
Whether it is a mixed school or it is an only girls school.
A curious mind is a curious mind.
It's a curious mind. They find the space, and if the opportunity provides itself, they take full advantage.
All right, let's just remind our audience, by the way, that we've got a question of the day. Remember, we're asking about the major challenges you think that teenage mothers or pregnant girls are facing in their school environment. By the way, should you have a loved one who's actually walked this path, this journey, how did you as a family unit, deal and encourage this young lady? At K24 TV is how you can reach us, and to our WhatsApp number. I'll ask my director, Abu, to let me know if we do have text messages coming in, but still sharing this very, very interesting and unique report that was done by Interpress Service. Listen to this. The report, Down the Drain, Counting the Costs of Teenage Pregnancy and School Dropout in Kenya, shows that while only 35% of girls between the ages of 16 and 20 are in school, 50% of boys the same age attend. Yet, enrollment of boys and girls in lower primary is almost equal. But that got me thinking, Catherine, that there's hardly any negative experiences around the boy child, so to speak, when they are involved in such a situation. Their enrollment goes on as planned. Their time in school, is still as scheduled. They are not lagging behind on classes. It almost sounds unfair.
It's terribly wrong.
Because they are not even there, obviously, to deal with the aftermath, but even throughout the 9-month period that this girl is carrying the child. So you see, like you said, girls really do bear the bigger burden of everything.
Yeah, what every girl needs to be told is they must lock in their goods. They must lock in their goods. Shiko I've said before, was peane. They must lock in their goods.
Yes.
And I keep saying they feel paragasha. Then after you have felt paragasha, you are left with the consequence. What everyone needs to tell the girl is that she bears more weight. And also the boy has a lesser weight, but it is hidden inside them. It is tormenting them. So what we need to tell the boys and the girls is train the man harder. Because the man is the one that is making the girls pregnant. However, Shiko, we are in 2021, where we have all the smartphones, and our girls have become also very seductive. They seduce the boys. So what we need to tell them is, joto ya leo ni majuto ya kesho. They must tame themselves. One thing I came with the Bible because the word of God tells me that education is your life. So we tell these children, we are not denying them to have sex. All what we are telling them is that there's a time for for everything. They are just children. We go back to my lovely animal kingdom.
Yeah.
The cats, the puppies, they don't mate.
Yeah.
So we tell this girl and the boys, they'll not die for not having sex. And then, Shiko, we talk about pregnancies, and we are imagining that everything else is good. You can imagine the level of STIs in Kenya today.
Absolutely.
And these are children. And allow me to say it, that private part disease should not be kept privately. Because when we keep it privately, it will eat up privately and pain-free.
Right.
We must now not only look at the pregnant ones.
Yeah.
We must ask them, are you feeling anything down there?
Right.
We must talk
openly.
I
like that because what you're saying is that more work needs to be done on the ground, especially even in boys' schools.
Yes.
Or even with the boy population in the school.
Yes.
Who is talking to them?
Unfortunately, we target the girl
because
of the pregnancy.
Yeah.
But that is dealing with the symptom. The root is the boy. So we must be able, and the church, we must now hear the church more. Because the church, I'll have the word of God. They'll have to tell the boys, aim, zip up, or that thing will kill you. And I have said that.
And you know, also the problem that perhaps we have today is that we simply just say don't. But you're not explaining why they don't. So there goes the curious mind saying, okay, I'm being told not to, but why am I being told not to? Let's take a look at WhatsApp very quickly and then get back to our lovely ladies in studio as we talk about the teenage pregnancy crisis and, of course, the discrimination in learning environments, rather. Someone says, well, the biggest challenge that these young pregnant girls face is being looked down upon as failures in life, and as a result they suffer from inferiority complex, and hence they lose hope in life and even find themselves in even more wanting situations. My appeal to everyone this morning is that before we rush to judging them and their situations, let's first put ourselves in their shoes, then thereafter, how if it were you, would you want to be taken or rather treated in such a manner? Egerton, thank you so much. My kid's sister got pregnant over the COVID break. She just turned 17. And when she told mom, all hell broke loose. However, after some time, things cooled off. But my dad was never told until a month later. She ran away from home. And the next thing we know, she's in hospital after trying to terminate it. Wow, how unfortunate. She said that she could not imagine going back to school pregnant. Come to think of it, if she couldn't be accepted at home, school was probably going to be worse.
Very
true. Lastly, the discrimination from fellow students is a bigger threat of which it can be handled when there is good guiding and counseling among the students. Wow, that story about the 17-year-old girl. Now that's reality.
Actually,
that's reality.
With the COVID period, if you listened to the CS at some point, she talked about 5,000 girls who were pregnant during the COVID period. Partly, yes, what she was talking about, the fact that now we've gone to virtual spaces, so we are allowing our children access to phones, access to the internet, but how much control do you have? Do you check on what exactly is happening to those platforms? So it's important, even at the schools, identify virtual platforms to be able to work with. You monitor what information is coming in. What is the message at the end of the day? Are they able to grasp what it is? But one of the things I think we need to emphasize is the fact that you need to have open conversations. We are not having enough conversations. Most of the work that parents do is to speak the don't word. But how do you support the young teenager to understand when the feelings are in and they're having all these emotions, what are they, how are they supposed to handle it? We talk about the sex education and focusing mostly about what happens, but you don't tell them how to manage what happens. How do the boys handle their feelings when they feel like they want to experiment? When their body organs are growing and they're feeling their hormones, they're changing. Who talks to them about this? There are some attempts, I must say, whereby you look at, I think I've seen it in a few churches where when they start doing the circumcision ceremonies for the boys, they have sessions for both boys and girls. And they bring the parents to be able to talk to them. And to talk to them mostly about how do they manage these feelings. When you're saying now you're a man or you're a boy, what are you telling them? Because the next thing they are told from that exercise is to say, now you're a man, you know you can now have your own house. And you can also marry
Right.
So what are you telling this young man?
Absolutely.
That he can go out there and prey on anybody's child, and that is okay.
Okay.
But unless the justice system comes into support, because the only time that has not been the case where the boy will continue this education is when the families come out and report, we can identify these perpetrators and we can take them for rehabilitation.
Yeah.
I keep saying this, prison is not a punishment. It is a rehabilitation place.
Okay.
The idea is to change what how you think so that you can change how you feel
Yeah.
and therefore how you behave.
All
So
right.
that you can integrate and be a normal human being who respects other people's spaces like everybody else.
Well, at least let's just hold that thought for a second. We want to take a short commercial break and then get back into this conversation. We're actually focusing on education and the discrimination, by the way, that's so apparent, okay? Look at the situation as a teenage pregnant lady or teenage pregnant girl. How do we handle that particular situation? And going forward, what are some of the things that we need to change, even as family, as society going forward, so that we can provide this support system that Angela and Catherine are really trying to bring out today? Keep talking to us, including some of the challenges that you believe that teenage mothers or pregnant girls are facing in their school environment and what's really deterring them from going back to school. We'll be back with more.